Hey, hey. Really the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain while I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best till into the next world. Guess I got next still.
And welcome into the Best Bell Fantasy Football Podcast and live stream. My name is Bradley Stalder. You can follow me on Twitter at FFStalder. And tonight I'm going to do a quick recap of some of the best Week 11 fantasy football performances. Let's get into it. The first, we'll start with the quarterbacks, and that's Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow finishes as the quarterback one, despite not having Jamar Chase for this week. 26.7 fantasy points, 24 of 39, a pretty pedestrian 61.5% completion percentage, threw for over 350 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 2 of which go to Samaje. Actually, is it 2 or 3? 2 or 3 passing touchdowns to Samaje Perine. That's actually 3. 3 of his 4 passing touchdowns went to Samaje Perine, which is pretty wild. Joe Mixon leaves this game with a concussion, but Samaje Perine gets some of that work in even before Joe Mixon was officially declared out for the week. Burrow sprinkled in for 4 attempts and 5 yards rushing as well. This was one of those games where, Pittsburgh was really pushing it, and this game turned into a slugfest pretty quickly. 67 combined points between the Steelers and the Bengals. So, it didn't even need Jamar Chase for Joe Burrow to be the quarterback one yet again. Looking at what Joe Burrow has done this season, right? It's been an up and down year, and it hasn't been the revenge game, that you would have expected, but he did do better this week. Last time, week 1 against Pittsburgh, instead he threw 4 interceptions. He only threw 2 in this game, so you can say, well, this was progress, but this is now the 4th time that Joe Burrow has eclipsed the 20 fantasy point mark, and this is the 3rd highest score of the season for Burrow. It's been an inconsistent year for him. 2 interceptions, that puts him at 6 of his 8 interceptions have come against the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. But hopefully with Jamar Chase trending the right way, Chase is reportedly off of the crutches and should be in good shape. So hopefully in the next couple weeks, we'll start seeing Jamar Chase getting back onto the field. The quarterback 2 for the week, Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett, this was also one of those sneaky games where you were like, are they going to be pushing back and forth between the Bills and the Browns? And unfortunately, there was a lot of garbage time for Jacoby Brissett to make some damage. Donovan Peoples-Jones had a late touchdown. Kareem Hunt had a lot of dump-off yards. But you have to like at least the efficiency that Jacoby Brissett put up later on in the game. 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, didn't turn the ball over, 324 passing yards. Amari Cooper was crushing in this game. And so, 7 rush attempts for 29 yards. This is nearly 26 fantasy points puts Jacoby Brissett, as a season high. So even though the Browns, they're kind of trending the wrong way and are going to be in a tough spot to be competing for a playoff spot, Jacoby Brissett has played admirably. He's played admirably. He's trying to step in for Deshaun Watson. There are just missing pieces on the defense, and this is a vengeful Bills team after what happened last week. So Jacoby Brissett, you can't fire him up as a quarterback 1 moving forward. Next week is probably going to be his last week as a quarterback 2 for you in your fantasy lineups, and then you're going to have to pivot somewhere else if you've been counting on Jacoby Brissett. Daniel Jones is the quarterback 3 for the week, and he faced Detroit. The Giants fell to the Lions in New York, well, technically New Jersey, but Jones goes 27 of 44. He passes for over 340 yards. He does have 2 picks, only 1 passing touchdown, but the saving grace for Daniel Jones is, as I've mentioned on this podcast numerous times, the rushing yards is what gets him into fantasy relevance, and 24.6 fantasy points. That is the second highest score of the season for Daniel Jones. And this was one of those quarterback streaming recommendations that I had made earlier in the week. If you were listening, paying attention, I mentioned Marcus Mariota, who, is right now the quarterback 12 on the week. You weren't angry about the nearly 18 points that he put up. And Daniel Jones also, you're pretty happy with the 24.6 fantasy points that he put up. The 50 rushing yards is really nice. He had the rushing score as well. And unfortunately, it looks like Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be out for some time with a significant knee injury. Just when we saw Wan'Dale becoming that trusted target once again, the Giants may have to make a desperate move in the free agency market. And I don't know if they have enough to get Will Fuller, but they've at least been in conversations in a reunion with Odell Beckham Jr. I am concerned that a reunion is always a risky move. Like, it worked out for LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers, but maybe that's what the big personality needs is, I spent time away, I'm going to come back, and the Giants, I can fill in the need here. I still have it. I am worried that Odell is still not going to be the saving grace of this New York Giants team that has built up some nice chemistry. Unfortunately, they were not able to pull out this victory against the Lions. In fact, the Lions have won 3 straight games. They've kind of tanked their draft capital status in the 2023 rookie draft. So you're hoping that, the Lions continue to make a push. They were a sneaky play for me to make the playoffs this year. I don't know if that's within the range of outcomes still, given what their record is, but 3 straight wins puts them into at least raising an eyebrow, saying, what can they do moving forward? But the Giants are still in contention for the playoffs as well, despite this loss to the Lions. Jalen Hurts finishes as the quarterback for this week, 18 to 25, 72% completion percentage. He averaged 7.6 yards per attempt, 190 passing yards. He had a passing touchdown. He also had a rushing touchdown, 16 rush attempts, 86 rushing yards, 24.2 fantasy points, quarterback 4 on the week. And you're not angry about this one either, right? I mean, there have been other spike weeks like this one. Like week 1, he had 24 points. Week 2, 33 points. Week 5 against Arizona, 27. Week 8, 28. But this is part and parcel, par for the course for Jalen Hurts getting in that top 5 quarterback range. And no surprises there. No surprises. And the Philadelphia Eagles come away with the victory. It was slow. It seemed at the beginning he had a couple good passes to A.J. Brown, and then things slowed down. Hurts hit Quez Watkins for a 22-yard touchdown late in the game, and that set it up for the Colts to take the L, the first loss. So Jeff Saturday falls to 1-1 on the season. It was a close game, though. You have to give it to the Colts for trying to battle it out there against the Eagles. The 5th quarterback on the week, and the last one I want to talk about, is Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields, the quarterback 5, he left the game and was carted off at the end of the game. There's video circulating about him. He's carted off holding his shoulder, and there's not word yet as to how serious or significant of a shoulder injury Justin Fields suffered in this game against Atlanta. Fields, 14 to 21, 67% completion, 151 passing yards, a pick, and a passing touchdown. He rushed 18 times for 85 yards and had a rushing score as well, 22.6 fantasy points, gets him into that quarterback 5, and this very well will be barring Justin Herbert making a jump into this top 5. This will be the 5th straight week where Justin Fields finishes as a top 5 quarterback. Of course, barring whatever happens in Monday Night Football as well. So Justin Fields, quarterback 5, and if he escapes and is not really limited, it's not been the passing game that's been giving Justin Fields the fantasy points. It's the rushing, right? Today, 14.5 of his 22.6 fantasy points came on the ground. It's not the passing that is getting it done for Justin Fields. It's the rushing, and Eberflus allowing that rushing to happen. We're just getting some updates here in the game, and Josh Palmer has been crushing in this game in the absence of Mike Williams, who is ruled out with an ankle injury. So a second touchdown for Josh Palmer. I may need to update his rankings here, but we can talk about that when we get to the wide receivers. The running back one on the week, Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard, 33.9 fantasy points in half PPR, 15 of 80 on the ground, 6 of 6 through the air. He had a man catch, okay, unscathed to the end zone, 68-yard reception, 2 receiving touchdowns for Tony Pollard. And looking at what Tony Pollard has done like the last 3 weeks, 2 of them with Zeke out of the lineup, but then this one where Ezekiel Elliott as a top 10 running back, 2 rushing scores as well. We'll take a little bit more time to dive into the Zeke versus Pollard narrative here in a moment, but Tony Pollard over the last 3 games, 33.2 fantasy points, 20.3 fantasy points, and then this week, 33.9 fantasy points. Add Zeke into the mix, and he explodes. Now, there were a couple fluke plays, but this is hitting the right side of efficiency for Tony Pollard. So if you put him on your best ball teams, he's stepping into that running back 1 spot really nicely. And as we saw, like it's a splitting of carries. Zeke and Pollard both got 15 in this game. So I think that's how we're going to operate moving forward, that Zeke is going to get some of the goal line work, and Tony Pollard is going to be a third down, long down and distance. And also if they need some more wide receiver help, Tony Pollard will line up in the slot or run a route out of the backfield. And if he hits right, and he's a mismatch against a lot of linebackers. So you're firing up Pollard moving forward. There is no reason to bench Pollard even with Zeke back. And that's what I was saying earlier this week, is I didn't care if Ezekiel Elliott was back in the lineup, that Pollard was the running back that you wanted to put in your lineups. Now, running back that probably wasn't in your starting lineups was Samaje Perine. And he wasn't that great on the ground, 11 of 30. Less than 3 yards a carry. That's not going to get it done. He steps in for Joe Mixon, who leaves this game with a concussion. And Samaje Perine catches 4 passes on 4 targets for 52 yards and 3 touchdowns, 28.2 fantasy points. This is the most fantasy points that Samaje Perine has had all year. The next closest that he had was in week 3 against the New York Jets, 9 of 47 on the ground, 2 receptions for 14 yards. This season, he ties a season high with 4 receptions in this game. Samaje Perine, not known as a pass-catching back, but if he's left open, that's the danger of this Cincinnati Bengals offense, is you have to respect Tyler Boyd. You have to respect T. Higgins around the goal line. And if you leave those players open, Samaje Perine's going to make him pay. He was a capable grinder, first and second down back when he was with Washington. Now the last couple of years, he's played a useful role on the Cincinnati Bengals offense. And with Mixon out, Samaje Perine may be the number 1 waiver ad this coming week from the running back position. I can't really think of anyone off the top of my head of who would be out there on your waiver wire. Samaje Perine, a priority waiver wire ad. I'm already thinking about the ways in which I want to talk about him moving forward, but it's going to be opportunity. The reason why you chase Samaje Perine, not because of the fantasy points. If he gets 15 carries in this Bengals offense, it doesn't matter if he gets 4 or 3 or even less than 3 yards per carry. He's going to get some goal line work, because that is the role of the Cincinnati Bengals running back role. So, and maybe you're taking a deep flyer in Chris Evans, fine. But Samaje Perine is the type of player that you want, to be stashing, especially now that we're getting into the grind of these waivers near the end of the year with the playoffs coming. Samaje Perine, a priority waiver ad. The running back 3 on the week, Najee Harris. Once again, for the second straight week, Najee Harris, 90 or more rushing yards. Okay. He falls in the end zone twice in this game. He catches 4 passes on 6 targets for 26 yards. like, we have to like what we see from Najee Harris. He had a couple good runs in this game. You gets the goal line usage. I think are the Pittsburgh Steelers going to be scoring 30 plus points every week? I don't think so, but it's good to know that if they get into these shootouts, Najee Harris still has some spike week left in him. He was all left for dead by me and many others, in the fantasy industry. Just what is wrong with him? How badly is the Liz Frank injury affecting him? How hobbled is he by the knee pain and knee swelling that afflicted him as he was preparing for week 11? So maybe this will put Najee Harris hate to rest, but I imagine that it's really not going to. I mean, 4.5 yards a carry is fine. Seeing a couple bursty plays is good, but you're not chasing the touchdowns here. Najee Harris is a volume dependent running back or volume dependent running back too for me moving forward. I really can't get uber excited about Harris. I'm maybe call me stuck in my priors, but Najee Harris is not going to get there for me. Good on him that he's the running back 3 this week. I just don't see this being oft replicated. In fact, if we look at what Najee Harris has done this year in half PPR, right, this is a season high by nearly double. Right. Najee Harris, the previous game high in fantasy points in half PPR, 11.9. That was week 6 against Tampa when he had 1 receiving touchdown on 2 receptions, 7 yards. And then he only had 42 rushing yards in that game. So to double his fantasy output this week, I'm viewing this as more of the outlier game. The running back 4 on the week, Jamal Williams. And we got word before this game that there was really bad wind shear at MetLife Stadium in the Meadowlands. And I tweeted out, hey, 26 carries for Jamal Williams incoming. And he, in fact, did not get 26 rushing attempts. He got 17 rushing attempts, only 64 rushing yards, 3.8 per carry. And that's not the role of Jamal Williams anyways. He's not a dynamic back. He is you got to get it, I'm going to give it to you type of back. 3 rushing scores in this game. You have to be happy with the amount of rushing touchdowns he's had, 12 on the season. And the Detroit Lions have won 3 straight games. Jamal Williams, the battering ram around the goal line. His role is very, very clear. And especially with DeAndre Swift, Swift is the running back 17, tied for running back 17 with Pacheco going into Monday Night Football, 10.7 half PPR fantasy points. So you're looking at 2 top 20 running backs every week, one because of the goal line work and one because of the passing work and the efficiency. So Jamal Williams, you're firing up as a high-end running back too, because of the touchdown, because of the role that he has. And that hasn't changed throughout the year. And there's not really a reason for the Detroit Lions to move away from Jamal Williams. He's not giving them any reason. He's not fumbling the ball away. He's scoring them touchdowns, and he's a trusted guy in the locker room. So as long as Jamal Williams is there, you're putting him in your starting lineup as a solid running back too, with as we see a running back 4 upside due to the touchdowns. Those 6 points can get you there. The running back 5 on the week, Derrick Henry. 28 rush attempts against the Green Bay Packers, 87 rushing yards, not very efficient on the ground. In fact, if we look at the top 5, 3 of the top 5 running backs had less than 4 yards per carry. So it's clear to me that it's not about rushing efficiency that's getting these running backs into massive scoring and elite tier of weekly finishes. Instead, Derrick Henry had the 1 rushing score, fine, but he also caught 2 passes on 2 targets for 45 yards. He had a passing touchdown, 2 completions in this game. He is the do-it-all part of the offense here. Okay. We have Travis Kelce just scored his 3rd touchdown of the week. Travis Kelce, we'll talk about him in a moment, but holy buckets. I'm sure everyone is watching this game because it is a wild, wild one here between the Chargers and the Chiefs. Derrick Henry also putting up ridiculous numbers here. Running back 6 on the week, David Montgomery. And this is the first game that Khalil Herbert had spent on IR, and David Montgomery getting 17 carries in this game. But hey, even the 6th highest scoring running back on the week, only 3.9 yards per carry. It's not about efficiency. Once again, it's about getting the passing volume, and it's about falling into the end zone in this half PPR format. 3 receptions for 54 yards David Montgomery gets, and he gets the rushing score as well. So running back 6, and I think that a low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2 is about the right range for David Montgomery with Khalil Herbert out. This was against Atlanta, which is a massively plus matchup, but it was still David Montgomery could only muster 3.9 yards per carry against Atlanta. Moving forward, that's you should treat David Montgomery as a high-end running back 2. You can't get super excited about his efficiency, but you should be even more worried if Justin Fields misses time. David Montgomery is going to get bottled up even more. Imagine if Justin Fields is not on the field, keeping defenses honest. Is he going to run? Is he going to run past option? Like, is he going to hand the ball off to David Montgomery? What is Justin Fields going to do? That's what defenses have to prepare for. If defenses have to prepare for just David Montgomery, then what are we doing here, right? So, it's David Montgomery moving forward. You can't have a lot of optimism for him, even with this running back 6 performance. You have to think that this is not as replicable moving down the line. Running back 7, once again, this is a volume play for Josh Jacobs. Jacobs finished with 24 attempts, 109 rushing yards. He did not score a touchdown in this game, 17.5 fantasy points. It was a clear tier break from Derrick Henry down to Dave Montgomery, down to Josh Jacobs. Jacobs, 51 receiving yards in this game. This was an overtime game as well against Denver, which the Vegas Raiders were able to pull off an overtime walk-off touchdown to Davante Adams. But this is really encouraging. Once again, Josh Jacobs being able to do this, get 100 rushing yards against Denver for the second time this season. Last time, 28 rush attempts, 144 yards. He did get the touchdowns in that game, 31 receiving yards on 6 targets, 5 receptions last time. So still involved in the passing game. In fact, Josh Jacobs has at least 3 receptions in, 4, 5, 6, 7 of his last 8 games. Josh Jacobs has at least 3 receptions. This is the type of breakout we were hoping for years ago from Josh Jacobs, and now it's happening. Now it is happening, even on a day where he doesn't fall into the end zone. Josh Jacobs, a top 7 running back. I'm sorry, my my phone is blowing up here with this Travis Kelce news. Nevertheless, Ezekiel Elliott is jumping in as our running back 8 on the week. 15 of 42 on the ground, 2 touchdowns. He caught his 1 reception for 5 yards. This was the Tony Pollard show. And we saw Zeke split carries with Tony Pollard, but Pollard got all the receptions. So Zeke, running back 8, he's not replicating that. If you add up the fantasy points just from his rushing yardage and his receive, so the non-rushing touchdown taking away 5.2 fantasy points. Now, is he going to be the goal line back moving forward? Probably. So can we project, let's say, 1 fantasy point or a 1 rushing score? I think that's a little generous, but maybe half a rushing score each game. So 3, we're talking 8 to 9 fantasy points. That means Ezekiel Elliott probably falls into this high-end running back 3, low-end running back 2 tier, this running back 20 to 28, depending upon yardage variance and game script variance and whatnot. But Ezekiel Elliott, he's not going to fall into the end zone twice very often moving forward. This was one of those games where the goal was to rush the ball 30 times against against the Vikings when it was close and when it got out of hand. It was ridiculous. The receivers were not really involved in this game for both teams. So yeah, you can't trust Zeke as a top 12 back moving forward. Sorry, everyone. And hopefully this does not give Jerry Jones reason to bench Pollard or get into Mike McCarthy's ear that Pollard is not a worthy option. Okay. So let me do one last update since the game ended. Austin Eckler was the running back 10 as I was getting prepared for this podcast and live stream. But in fact, he moves to running back 9. That's where the game finishes. Eckler, I know it says 17 of 71 and a touchdown, but he actually finishes this game 19 rushing attempts, 83 yards. He had the rushing score, 2 for 17 receiving. He finishes with 17 fantasy points. So pretty good deal for Austin Eckler. Running back 9, not an amazing day, but the return of Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is healthy coming out of this game as far as we can tell. And those are the types of targets that are going to nibble into Austin Eckler's. Like Big Mike Williams is more of a downfield threat, right? Mike Williams, more of a downfield threat. Josh Palmer is going to step into that role more often is how I view it. So that explains why Josh Palmer is going to be one of the hopefully he's rostered for you, because some people were dropping him, and that's what I had recommended for some of the higher upside plays this week. But Austin Eckler, I am worried about the target share with Keenan Allen returning, just the types of targets, the short distance. Justin Herbert has been throwing short passes as of late. So yeah, Austin Eckler, running back 9 on the week. The running back 10 on the week, Devin Singletary. At least this is going into Monday Night Football. Devin Singletary, 19 of 83 on the ground, 4.4 yards per carry. He had a touchdown on the ground, 2 receptions for 2 receptions for 11 yards. And this was just a classic Singletary. Like Singletary is going to get the majority of the work in the backfield. Like Zach Moss is Nyheim Hines is going to get sprinkled in. You've got Duke Johnson get sprinkled in. You'll see James Cook, who played really well in this game. James Cook, shout out Florida State. But Devin Singletary, if we look at the last few games, Singletary has had 17, 14, 13 carries, 3 of the last 4 games. And then this game where he has 18 carries against the Browns. I mean, the Bills were trying to salt away the game. It was out of hand, by the start of the fourth quarter. So Singletary, 18 of 86 on the ground. And there's no real reason to think that Singletary is not going to be the lead back moving forward. You can expect between, the 12 and 18 carries that we saw today, just depending on the game script and the competitiveness and the need for Josh Allen to throw the ball down the field. We're going to move to wide receiver. And the number 1 wide receiver on the week, Davante Adams. Now, Davante Adams, let's see. I'm just doing one quick update here for Josh Palmer, because that is something that happened. Actually, it doesn't change Josh Palmer's ranking at all, as funny as that sounds. Davante Adams, 13 targets, 141 receiving yards. He had a walk-off touchdown and another touchdown as well. Adams, I'm going to see if I can find my fantasy data article, but I had Adams ranked pretty high this week, and no surprise either, as why don't I just talk about those rankings as well, since we have half PPR. All right, so I had Adams at 5. Consensus was at 4, so I was a little bit lower, but still, a top 5 wide receiver, and then Davante Adams gets overtime to score the touchdown on this broken play. Fine, I was actually, not too bad on Davante Adams, but it is what it is. A pretty good week, but the Raiders' offense looks pretty broken for the most part, aside from Adams and Jacobs. So Adams is a top 5 wide receiver moving forward, no matter what's going on. The wide receiver 2 on the week is Amari Cooper. Now, Amari Cooper, you're thinking to yourself, Bradley, how would we have known that Amari Cooper was going to have a big week? Well, if you would have read my top prop fantasy article, you would have seen that I referenced Adam Koffler's tweet where he pointed out that Amari Cooper scores on average 4 or 5 more fantasy points per game in dome games than he does outside. Number one. Number two is Amari Cooper crushes against the zone defense, and the Bills played a lot of zone defense, and Cooper was getting open. In fact, against zone defense, he was on average a full yard more open going into this game versus compared to when he was playing against man coverage. And Amari Cooper just crushed. He's a big body wide receiver. We know that, former first round pick. And what a get for the Cleveland Browns. They gave up, a 5th round pick to take on the contract of Amari Cooper. Now, shout out to me. I got Amari Cooper right in this game. I had him ranked as the wide receiver 12 on the week. The consensus had him at wide receiver 17. I was one of the highest rankers on Amari Cooper. In fact, let me see if I can find exactly how high. Yeah, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Only 16 rankers that were higher than me on Amari Cooper this week. So, yeah, shout out to me. Crushed it. Amari Cooper, wide receiver 2 going into Monday Night Football, and 12 targets, 8 receptions, 113 receiving yards, and those 2 touchdowns. 9.4 yards per target, 14.1 yards per reception. Have to be happy with that. And most of his damage came while the Browns were relatively close. The Donovan Peoples-Jones touchdown came late when it was garbage time, but Amari Cooper made the most of his work when the game was competitive. The wide receiver 3 for the week, Josh Palmer. Now, Palmer had a 50-yard touchdown to start this game, which, 50-yard touchdown. That was amazing. But save. There we go. 50-yard touchdown. That was amazing. Yeah, he started with that. And then Mike Williams leaves this game in the first half with a re-aggravation of the same ankle injury that he suffered weeks ago. Shout out to Mike Williams for trying to make it through this game. But Josh Palmer is going to be the wide receiver who steps in for the Mike Williams role. I mean, not exactly Mike Williams. They're different body types, different builds, the whole bit. But Josh Palmer is the type of wide receiver that's going to step into the longer distance role. Whereas I am a little bit worried for Austin Eckler because of the type of targets that Keenan Allen gets, and they kind of overlap with what Austin Eckler gets. Now, we also are interested in seeing what's going to happen with Gerald Everett. How long is that injury the groin injury going to keep him out for? We don't know. We just don't know. And we also don't know who the other tight end is going to step in. Is it going to be, I don't know, another tight end? Or is it going to be like Stone Smart, who got 1 reception in this game, 1 target for 6 yards? If there is an extremely deep dynasty pickup, it's Stone Smart at tight end. So those who play dynasty long-term and you've got large benches, Stone Smart is a tight end that the Chargers are very high on. Brandon Staley gave it away to the NBC broadcasters that, hey, Stone Smart is a tight end that we want to be getting on the field. And he even talked himself into getting Stone Smart snaps. Isn't that wild? That's wild to me. Stone Smart was just activated off of the IR, and he's a player that I had picked up in my 2 32-team leagues. So that is someone that I am interested in those deep dynasty leagues. We have a question from Juan Berth from YouTube. Hey, Juan, how are you doing? Hopefully you're doing okay. We have make sure that you're hitting the red subscribe button as we answer these questions, and hop on to check out the other videos as well, Juan. He says I'm down by 21 with Christian McCaffrey left. Do you think I win it's PPR. Well, let's look at what Christian McCaffrey has done, right? Christian McCaffrey in his game logs, in full PPR, right? That's what we're looking at. Christian McCaffrey, he needs 21 points from McCaffrey. McCaffrey has hit that threshold 1, 2, 3, 4 times out of 9 games. So there's your answer. Probably 50-ish percent, 40 to 50% chance that you get it there, Juan. I think it's going to be close. Obviously, there have been games where Christian McCaffrey gotten 17, 16. But you're hoping that Kyler Murray plays, honestly, Juan, because then that is probably going to be more competitive. Whereas if it's Colt McCoy playing, like, shout out to Colt McCoy, former Texas product, but I don't think the offense moves as well with Colt McCoy. There's a reason why he's the backup. So we'll have to see. But if Colt McCoy plays, I don't think that the Arizona Cardinals push the 49ers in that way for Christian McCaffrey to be necessarily used very often. So that's what I would say is I'm a little worried for you. I would say it's less than 50% chance for you. Okay, Juan, I'm sorry. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I will be rooting for you. I wish you all of the luck. I hope that it falls on the right side of variance just for you since you hopped in here. All right, let's keep her rolling with reviewing the rest of the top performers of Week 11 going into Monday Night Football. Number 4 for wide receivers, T. Higgins. That's right. If you read my Top Prop Fantasy article, make sure you go into Top Prop Fantasy and using the promo code BESTBELL, one word. They will match your first deposit up to $50 for free. So you get a $50 for free. I mentioned T. Higgins, and I compared Higgins versus McLaurin +2 fantasy points. And I said, still give me T. Higgins. Still give me T. Higgins in this game. This game could be a shootout. He gets a great matchup. T. Higgins is an alpha. Yes, I want T. Higgins. Terry McLaurin, I love the target share that he's getting. But the talent for T. Higgins is better. The quarterback is better. And the matchup, frankly, was better for T. Higgins. And boy, was I right. So you can take that to the bank. It was really nice to get that. Yeah. So there we go. T. Higgins crushed it this week. You have to be happy. And, of course, what goes up correlates to what goes up. Joe Burrow and T. Higgins stacked together. If you had those, you were in pretty good shape. We're going to move on to the wide receiver 5 for the week. 4 receptions, 48 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns for Christian Watson. Green Bay Packers rookie wide receiver. He's had 5 touchdowns the last 2 games. And if you're buying high on a wide receiver, it's Christian Watson. People are not believing that he is the real deal. And maybe there is reason for skepticism on, is he a polished wide receiver? Can he make all of the catches? I don't think it matters. And I think this is something that I'm changing my mindset on about players. Like, this is the Best Bell Fantasy Football podcast. This is not your, is he a decent enough player? Is he a floor play? No, Christian Watson gives you access to upper tier types of fantasy performances. Will he be inconsistent? Yes. But I think that comparing him to a Gabriel Davis type of fantasy scorer, where he can score touchdowns in bunches, he can get open. He's a downfield type of player. If you remember, Gabriel Davis, when he was at Florida International, was a downfield type of player, and he fell to the 4th round for various reasons. But Christian Watson is tied to, just like Gabriel Davis, tied to a very good quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, and the parallel correlation is Josh Allen. So Christian Watson doesn't need a lot of targets to be good, but he did get a 40% target share back in week 10. And in week 11, he was even missed on a couple deep passes by Aaron Rodgers over the last couple games. These stats could be even higher. And with Romeo Doubs out, Watson is a better prospect than Doubs was. For obvious reasons, better speed, better build, can catch the ball better. the whole bit. So Christian Watson is a wide receiver that if someone is saying, you know what, I want to sell him, see what I can get, see if you can buy high on Christian Watson. Okay. I see some comments jumping into, and feel free to throw some comments in there. Happy to talk through your your miseries or your joys. Travis Kelce's however many points probably still didn't get me that W. I'm pulling up. There's one league that I care about the most in the best ball streets. And yeah, I'm going to end up losing by about 30 points, unfortunately. And even despite Travis Kelce getting me 35.5 in that league. So unfortunately, that's the dealio. Yeah, some people are coming into my comments and saying, well, why'd you tell me to start Kadarius Toney? Because Kadarius Toney was a good start. It was a good process. Unfortunately, he got injured. The hammy jump touchdown, was kind of ironic in week 10. And now he actually does hurt his hamstring. And so we'll see what the prognosis is moving forward. But that's how it is. So nevertheless, let's see. Kelce dropped 35 on me and I started Toney. No, I know that the Toney hurt is real. I feel it. I'm with you. I feel it. And it's the process over results. And that's what you got to tell yourself, unfortunately. But this might be the time where you've lost your league because you started Toney, right? In some of the leagues, I put Toney in my lineup and yikes, that hurts. But I also put Kelce into my lineups too. So just like you should have, he's the tight end 1 for sure. Sean said, I started Sanders and Williams over Swift. I'm down 21 and have Hopkins left. Well, let's look at what DeAndre Hopkins has done so far this year. Hopkins, in his game logs in full PPR, has gotten 21 fantasy points in just one of his 4 games so far, but he's gotten close in 2 of the others. He finished with 20.3 fantasy points, 19.8 fantasy points, but he had 33.9 against Minnesota. Unfortunately, Hopkins is probably going to get balls passed to him by Colt McCoy, and he was the wide receiver 12 in PPR last week. He was the wide receiver 15 and a half PPR last week. Like, that's not going to get it done for you. You were hoping for at least wide receiver 10 or better. So yeah, that is the dealio. Jim 896 said Kelce put me ahead 41. I'm playing against CMC and Rondell in full PPR. Do you think I win? I think you do, or at least I'm giving you a better than 50% chance to win, Jim. I probably put it at like a 65 to 70% chance that you win. Of course, could McCaffrey go off? Absolutely. But to have and Rondell maybe back and forth, we don't know who's Hopkins might even be inactive. We haven't gotten complete clarity on that yet. It's likely that he plays. That's just my gut feeling. But the reality is that he's significantly questionable, limited all week. And he's an older player who we've seen lose games due to these soft tissue issues. So if DeAndre Hopkins doesn't play, then Rondell Moore steps into a very, very interesting spot. I was hearing everywhere Toney was a great start. I even started him over Pollard. No. Oh, man. I would have drawn the line at Pollard. So I would have started Pollard over Debo. I would have started Toney over Debo. I'm low on Debo this week. So there we go. Hopefully Kyler plays the Niners. The Niners are elite against the run, so hopefully Cardinals throw a lot. Yeah, that's true. It's true. I've been low on Kyler the last few weeks, even before the injury. So hopefully he does play for the sake of our other fantasy assets. I agree. Drunk Squidward said he started Peoples-Jones instead of Palmer. Now he needs 19 points from the Cardinals defense. Dude, I'm rooting for you, Drunk Squidward. I'm rooting for you, hoping that you get what you need. Right. You can't be sad about Donovan Peoples-Jones' week, though. I mean, yes, you're sad that you missed out on Palmer, but I'll skip ahead. Like Donovan Peoples-Jones right now, wide receiver 10 on the week, 6 for 61 and a touchdown, or 5 for 61 and a touchdown. You're not upset about that, right? Like, at least from an objective, like, did I play a player who got me more points than I expected? And was the Mike Williams injury or re-injury a possibility? Yes, but you knew Donovan Peoples-Jones was going to play. You also knew Keenan Allen was going to play too. So it was Williams and Allen playing in this game, plus Eckler. So Josh Palmer was a risky play. That's the reality. So I get it that there's like this hindsight regret, but that's just how variance falls sometimes, unfortunately. So Donovan Peoples-Jones, wide receiver 10 on the week. He got a garbage time touchdown that did bail you out. So, as I said, you're not unhappy with the wide receiver 10 in your flex spot. Oh, man, I started Tony too, but Kelce came through and won me this week. Let's go, Cadillac from YouTube. There we go. Boom. I love it. I love it. Overcoming that Tony start is a big deal. Z Money XV from YouTube. I have 101.6 with D Hop. He has 111 with Kittle. Am I gonna win? So what we said last week, Colt McCoy started and DeAndre Hopkins got 15 fantasy points. So we add 15 to that and we're at 116. You need 4 points or less from Kittle. I think Kittle, this is against the Arizona defense, and I think this is a smash spot for Kittle. I'd probably give you a 20 to 30% chance to win. Is it possible that you win? Of course. This is just how the probability games play. But Kittle gets the Arizona defense against tight ends, and this year they give up something like 16 fantasy points in half PPR to the tight ends every week, and Kittle's in a smash spot. So I would not give you the lean there, Z Money. I'm sorry. I wish you the best of luck. Throw you a shamrock emoji, Z Money XV, but unfortunately I don't think it's going to fall your way. I hope I'm wrong. I'm not. I just need extra points. Is really going back and forth, just Palmer or Peoples-Jones. That is fair. But the way I saw it was Peoples-Jones is guaranteed a 20% target share as the number 2 option in this Browns offense in a game that I expected to be a shootout, and it was. And then, Josh Palmer is the number 3 option, actually number 4 receiving option, how we projected it out. You expected Mike Williams to get targets. You expected Keenan Allen to get targets. You expected Austin Eckler to get targets. So Josh Palmer is the 4th option. That's what you're thinking about, is in the pecking order. And yes, it's also going to be a shootout. Like this game, there were lots of fantasy points scored. Let me see if I can pull up what the final score was. But 57 points so far. 57 points. Yeah, there were more points scored in actually, there were 54 points scored in the Buffalo-Cleveland game. So it was close. They were virtually the same in shootouts. So I would have gone with Donovan Peoples-Jones anyways. Cadillac asked from YouTube, full PPR. Should I trade Stevenson, Amon-Ra, and Debo for Tyreek and Pierce? I assume Dameon Pierce, because you're not trading for Alec Pierce. Other wide receivers are D-Hop, Garrett Wilson, Allen Robinson. I don't think I would do that. No. No. Sun God and Stevenson and Debo for Hill. I couldn't do it. I think Stevenson is a tier above Pierce, and Debo and Amon-Ra for Tyreek Hill. I wouldn't do that. So, yeah, sorry, Cadillac. I would not do that. Running backs are Henry, Connor, and Jeff Wilson. Yeah, no. Be honest, could we get 19 points from the Cardinals? DST, is that reachable? Well, let me talk defense, special teams. The Arizona Cardinals I had at 22. Okay, I had it 22. So, yeah, Arizona Cardinals at 20, the DST 22. I don't think that's likely. I don't think that's likely. Squidward giving me the laughing emojis. All right, let's get back into it. I've hit on a couple more wide receivers. The wide receiver 6 for the week, Chris Olave, 5 receptions, 102 receiving yards, and a touchdown. He had a big 50-yard reception, 53-yard reception that got him into the end zone. Other than that, like, this was a tough matchup. He somehow got past Jalen Ramsey for the score, so hats off to Olave for that play. But other than that, like, take away the one big play for Olave, and he has 49 receiving yards on 4 catches, right? That's a lower floor than you kind of want for Olave. Jarvis Landry back has kind of limited the ceiling of Olave, although you can't be hating on the wide receiver 6 on the week. Wide receiver 7. Oh, here's a name you haven't heard in a while. Demarcus Robinson catches all 9 passes against the Carolina Panthers, 128 receiving yards. His longest was 31 yards. Like, yikes. Demarcus Robinson, you're not starting him. Let's just be honest. You're not starting Demarcus Robinson. You're not starting Demarcus Robinson, no matter how the spike week is moving forward. You can't trust the 9 targets. Not as of right now. I would need to see it, a few more times moving forward. I mean, Demarcus Robinson, there was a 13-3 game, and Demarcus Robinson hadn't crossed the 10-point threshold before this game on the season. I mean, this is the second time he's gotten 8 targets. He had 8 targets against Tampa. He had 64 receiving yards against them that week. But no, I'm not trusting Demarcus Robinson to be like even a wide receiver 2, even a top 24 pick. But I think this does bump him up in the rankings. Like, could he be a high-end wide receiver 4, low-end wide receiver 3? Sure. Like, I think that's a fair assessment as long as, Isaiah Likely is not going to get all of the number 2 receiving role targets. George Pickens was one of my favorite deeper plays. I ranked Pickens a little bit higher than consensus this week, and he comes away with 4 receptions for 83 yards and a touchdown. The secondary for the Cincinnati Bengals has been reeling. And yeah, Pickens was a good play this week. So hopefully you started him or threw him into your flex. It was a nice little bump there. He's going to be inconsistent. You can't really trust Pickens as, a flex play consistently, but you can, in the right matchup, throw him in and see what you can get. And you have to be happy with 16.3 fantasy points. All right, the last wide receiver we'll talk about tonight, Wan'Dale Robinson, leaves this game against Detroit with a significant knee injury. The worst is feared, and they'll get tests tonight to confirm what looks to be a pretty devastating knee injury. 9 receptions, 13 targets, 100 receiving yards for Wan'Dale. His longest was 19. He was a close to the line of scrimmage receiver. He had 1 rushing attempt for 4 yards. 14.9 fantasy points. Oh man, I'm just so in on Wan'Dale Robinson, and it makes me so sad that he suffered this injury. I'm a huge Wan'Dale stan. I have him in like more than half of my dynasty leagues, but unfortunately Wan'Dale, will have to see where he ends up, in the timeline of progression, how the injury details unfold. But unfortunately, you'll probably have to operate without Wan'Dale Robinson the rest of the season. That's going to stink. And it puts the Giants in a precarious situation at the wide receiver spot because Kenny Galladay is not doing anything. Richie James had 3 receptions for 48 yards and a touchdown in this game. He finishes the wide receiver 15 going into Monday Night Football. But other than that, like, you're not really turning to any other players on the Giants in any dependable way. Kenny Galladay, only a couple receptions in this game. He even got an applause. He even got an ovation when he caught his first pass. So yeah, it's dire straits. And that's why the Giants are considering a reunion with Odell Beckham Jr. We will see if Odell decides to join the Giants or if there is another team like the Dallas Cowboys that OBJ prefers. Let's look at the comments, see what's popping in. Brixico from YouTube, thanks for popping in. Appreciate you doing that. Bummer, yeah, for Juan. And he dropped Brixico, dropped Palmer because he thought Williams and Allen were back. And in fact, they were back. They were back. I don't believe in the Josh Palmer profile, but as long as Mike Williams is out, you're going to have to be playing Josh Palmer as a flex consideration each week. I mean, you can't ignore what he did this week. And he doesn't earn targets. He gets targets, but this is a high volume offense, and Josh Palmer is going to run all of the routes. He's going to get targets, and he is for me, he's a reluctant flex play going through that. So I feel the pain, Brixico, of dropping Palmer. He's a priority add if he's dropped in your league. Cadillac said, I traded Lamar, Jacobs, and TJ Hawkinson, I assume, for Henry and Tua last week. It's really working out. Yeah, Henry's crushing, running back 5 this week, and Tua ever since the injury or the concussion in the Bengals game has 10 passing touchdowns, 0 interception, over 1,000 passing yards. So Tua Tagovailoa has really hit for you. Unfortunately, he was on his bye this week, so it didn't help you out for this week. But Derrick Henry has crushed as of late. So there we go. Barkley's first slump game cost me, and unfortunately, it cost most people because you were starting Saquon Barkley. I had him ranked as my running back 1 this week. Okay, I had him ranked as my running back 1, but that was consensus. So in this competition and the Fantasy Pros Accuracy Rankings contest, I wasn't really punished. I was not really punished for Saquon Barkley because that's where everyone else had him. Drunk Squidward, I was shocked the Lions were able to flip the script and stop the run. I did not see that coming. The Lions are gritty, man. The Lions are gritty. There's a lot of love here in Detroit for the Lions and Dan Campbell. He is elevating the play of them from their heart, not necessarily the skills. I think there's still, and talent-wise, there's still a lot of holes to be plugged for the Lions, but you have to give the Lions credit where credit is due. 3 straight wins, all gritty, gutty wins, and you're starting to see the wins fall on the right side of variance this time. You're starting to see them get the tough wins that they weren't able to get earlier. Thoughts on selling Cook and Saquon Barkley? Selvin Cook and Selvon Barkley. So let's talk about Cook and Barkley for a second, because we can pull it back to the running backs. Barkley, running back 37 going into... wait, why is this? Oh, that's weird. Yeah, Barkley, the running back 37 going into Thursday Night Football. And I don't know if... Oh, where did he go? Dalvin Cook, 11 of 72 on the ground. He was just game scripted out. That's Dalvin Cook, game scripted out. He was 6.5 yards a carry. Only 1 target, no receptions in this game. So that's what happens when Dallas puts up a 40 burger and Minnesota only scores 3. So unfortunately, Dalvin Cook, I don't know. I would hold on to Barkley. I've been telling you sell Dalvin Cook for almost a year now. So he's been fine for you, but not this week. A running back 27 going into Monday Night Football. Yeah, saw the Lions on red zone a lot. Kind of surprised me. Amon-Ra didn't score. He keeps getting tackled at the 2-yard line or the 5-yard line. Come on. Amon-Ra needs some touchdowns. Let's have I don't know, do whatever it takes. Pray to the fantasy football gods. Say something where Amon-Ra can get in the end zone. That would be really helpful for my best ball teams. Should I start or drop Kadarius Toney? Icy is asking this. Should I drop Kadarius Toney? Let's see how the hamstring goes forward. If it was just precautionary hamstring injury status, you're not dropping him. We're going to find out more. But if it's a long-term issue, because these hamstring injuries, tend to recur, and they're soft tissue issues that can be re-aggravated. We wonder if it's the one hamstring that already had issues earlier this season. Once we get more details about that, I think it depends on what you're going to get. Okay. Am I starting Peoples-Jones over A.J. Brown next week? Well, let me look at what the matchup is for A.J. Brown next week, because Peoples-Jones gets Houston, I believe, if I recall correctly. Let's see, game log. A.J. Brown gets Green Bay. You're going to start A.J. Brown no matter what. And I think Peoples-Jones gets Houston. And Houston is really tough against wide receivers. They give up like the third fewest wide receiver fantasy points. So I would not do that. Oh, they play Tampa. They play Tampa week 12. I'm still starting A.J. Brown over Donovan Peoples-Jones. Yeah, I'm still doing that. I traded Miles Sanders and DK for Jonathan Taylor. How smart? I think pretty smart. Jonathan Taylor did not finish as a top 10 running back this week, but he finishes 22 of 84 for a touchdown, 3 receptions for 10 yards. He actually would be more at like the running back 10 if it was not for a lost fumble. So Jonathan Taylor in a close game, that the Indianapolis Colts are gonna lean on Jonathan Taylor moving forward. So I think that's a good play. And then looking at what Jonathan Taylor's schedule is going to look like moving forward, Jonathan Taylor gets, I'm pulling up the game log now because, of course, I haven't memorized, all of that. Pittsburgh next week, then Dallas, and then a bye week, and then Minnesota, the Chargers, and then the Giants. So there are some tough matchups sprinkled in there. I would categorize, Dallas as a tougher matchup. Can't play him in the bye week, so that's still coming up. And you have to view the Giants as, a tough matchup. I know that they gave up 4 rushing touchdowns to the Detroit Lions this week, but look at what they did on the ground. Jamal Williams didn't average 4 yards a carry. Neither did DeAndre Swift. And yet both of them finished as top 20 backs. So it was just the goal line usage. And could Jonathan Taylor fall in for a touchdown or two? Sure. But you have to give the Giants credit because they play the run and the run blocking really tough. How do you think Deshaun does when he comes back? Brixico is asking this question. Deshaun gives good massages, so must start. I don't think he's the one who got the massages in this, or gives good. I don't think he was the one who was giving massages here. MJ's Elite Vlogs. Sorry to say, but how do I value him as a fantasy asset moving forward? Okay, he gets Houston in his first game back. Okay, at Houston. So that's going to be a ruckus. He hasn't played in almost 2 years. And then he gets Cincinnati, which, is a beatable defense, beatable secondary. So maybe he gets his rust off in the first game. You're probably not playing him against Houston unless you're desperate. Cincinnati, you might play him depending upon if he performs well in Houston. Baltimore is a tough defense. New Orleans is beatable. Washington is a tough but beatable defense. Depends on the way in which the season is going. That they're going to play tough, especially because Taylor Heineke might still be the quarterback at that point. And yeah, that's what we do. So I think there are some very startable games for Deshaun Watson, but that first game back, unless you really, really need him, I would just wait and see because the rust is going to be there. He's more risky that week 13 game against Houston. Okay. Tony is made of glass. I wouldn't trust him going forward, especially with Juju coming back at some point. Yeah, I think that's something too that we got to keep in mind is Juju Smith-Schuster was out for this game, and Mecole Hardman's on IR. If this was just a precautionary thing for Kadarius Toney, then we're also monitoring the progression of Juju. There hadn't been a lot of reports about Juju other than he wasn't practicing and he was ruled out pretty quickly before this week's set of games. So I'm playing this one by ear, but I get the pessimism for Toney. I get it. That's what I would do. Of course, this week I sit Olave. This is Brian Pereira from YouTube. Thanks for popping in, Brian. This week I sit Olave and Jamal Williams. I'm down by 50 and to secure a victory with McCaffrey Connor, and the 49ers D. Do I squeak the W? Okay, so here's the thing is I don't like stacking opposing defenses to offensive players that I'm like playing. Like I need to have a narrative go right in my head. Like you can see the correlation between like if the 49ers defense is doing well and the 49ers offense is doing well, McCaffrey and the 49ers are the play, and James Conner is probably not the play if the 49ers defense is doing well. But then you're not playing right the 49ers defense if you think that this is a smash matchup for James Conner. So it's kind of like that type of thing where you're really praying for like this threading of the needle that is extremely low probability if you're doing that. So like, would you get 50 points from McCaffrey and Conner in the 49ers defense? I don't think so. I don't think so. Brian, I'm rooting for you. I'm sorry. I don't think so. And MJ's Elite Vlogs has turned to religion and said, pray. Okay. Do the Browns wide receivers get an upgrade from Deshaun Watson coming back? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. 100%. MJ's Elite Vlogs agrees. 1,000%, especially Peoples-Jones. But also, like, you know, hats off to Amari Cooper for playing his butt off. And hats off to Jacoby Myers for actually trying. So, yeah, there we go. I agree. I also don't like all 1 o'clock players playing at the same time. At least I need a prime time player to start some sort. That's fair. That is fair. We're going to finish here with talking about the tight ends and how the tight ends did this week. And lo and behold, the tight ends did not do well this week. Surprise, surprise. Travis Kelce scores half. Travis Kelce scores half of all tight end touchdowns on the week. Okay. Yeah. So I need to actually do the update here for Kelce because he caught 6 passes on 10 targets for 115 yards and 3 touchdowns. That was the Travis Kelce line. He scores 3 of the 6. So of all tight ends in the entire NFL in week 11, there were only 6 touchdowns scored in this week by tight ends going into Monday Night Football. 3 of them, Travis Kelce. And those were half of his receptions. Kelce is clearly the tight end one. Clearly the tight end one. By far. He scores almost twice the amount of fantasy points that Austin Hooper, the tight end 2, scored. Travis Kelce is an auto start. There is no reason for you to think there's a downward decline or anything like that. He's like, okay, you're going to argue age cliff. He could fall off at any time. That's not true for elite tight ends. Look at Tony Gonzalez. Played well into his 30s. Look at Greg Olsen. Played well into his 30s. Look at Jason Witten. Jason Witten at age 37 had a top 12 tight end year. Okay? These elite tight ends play well into their 30s. Okay? Travis Kelce is not going anywhere for a while. There's no reason to fade Travis Kelce. Now looking at Austin Hooper, it's totally just based on the touchdowns. Okay. He scored 2, 4 for 36, not going to get it done. Like if you look at 4 for 36 in a half PPR format for wide receivers, 4 for 36 is 5.6 fantasy points. And that would be the equivalent of the wide receiver 44 if you take away the touchdowns. Wide receiver 44. That's Van Jefferson, Michael Gallup area. Okay. Disastrous. That's how bad the tight end position is this year. And with Mark Andrews not doing well, with Kittle yet to play, going into Monday Night Football, Austin Hooper 4 for 36 and 2 is your tight end 2. Okay. Tight end 3 on the week, Juwan Johnson. Now, if you want a regular streaming tight end option, Juwan Johnson's put it up for you. Like looking at what Johnson has done the last few weeks, you have to be happy with the production. If you've plugged and played him, like he in week 7 against Arizona, 17 fantasy points. Week 9, 11.2 fantasy points. Week 10, 12.9 fantasy points, and now he gets the touchdown, gets over 12 fantasy points in this game, 7 targets, ties a season high from week 2. This ties a season high 5. No, he had just 4 targets in this game. I was looking at week 10. My bad. But still, you have to be happy with him being used as a goal line type of tight end. And Juwan Johnson will be making your top 12 of tight ends pretty much every week of moving forward. There's no worries about Taysom Hill. There's no worries about Adam Troutman. It's Juwan Johnson, the former wide receiver. Wheels up for Pat Freiermuth. Didn't score a touchdown, still finishing as a top 4 tight end because he had 12 targets in this game. Like, with the trading of Chase Claypool away to the Chicago Bears, Pat Freiermuth enters the scene. And with injuries and bye weeks, Dallas Goedert out for a while, Gerald Everett out for a while, Pat Freiermuth now is this type of tight end that's going to get 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 plus targets. And in a game that was pushed, like the pace was pushed, the scoring was pushed, right? Pat Freiermuth has had 7 targets in now. This is week 11. 7 of his 10 games, he's had at least 7 targets. So wheels up for Pat Freiermuth. You have to be happy with it. And you have to be happy that he finishes the tight end 4, even without a touchdown. The last tight end we'll chat about, and then I'll answer your last bit of questions. Make sure that you're hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already. For those who are new, appreciate you joining the Best Bell Fantasy Football community. Dawson Knox, 7 receptions, 7 targets against the Browns. You have to be encouraged by the amount of targets. But for Dawson Knox, the criticism coming in the season was that he just was not commanding targets, but he's had at least 6 targets in each of the last 2 games. So, finishing with 7 and now 10.5 fantasy points. Okay, fine. Like, he's going to be okay. And in weeks where you just need points from your fantasy tight end, all right, it's good enough. If you don't have Kelce, you're just hoping that your guy just doesn't give you a 0. And Dawson Knox he's not been a 0 the last couple weeks. He has not had many touchdowns, but you wonder if during the second half of the season he's going to fall on the right side of variance for getting back to the higher touchdown rate that we saw last year. Okay, let's look at the last few questions here. Brixico, do I trade Terry McLaurin for Prescott? I have Deshaun and have him streaming. Wide receivers are Diggs, Adams, Pickens, Campbell, McLaurin, and MVS. I mean, depends on the size of the size of your starters, right? If you only need to start 2 wide receivers and maybe 1 flex, like you're probably okay with that. But if you need to start 3 wide receivers and then like 1 or 2 more flex spots, I probably wouldn't do that. Right? If you're looking to upgrade significantly, I think Prescott is a significant upgrade, but it just depends on how the season is going for you and what your starting lineup structure is. I don't hate it because Prescott is one of those quarterbacks that I've been in on since the offseason. Like, he got a raw deal with that week 1 hand injury, but I don't hate trading McLaurin to get a significant upgrade at quarterback moving forward. Drunk Squidward, I got a trade question. Would you trade Kareem Hunt, Josh Palmer, and Terrace Marshall for Ezekiel Elliott and Rondell Moore in Dynasty? Oof. Okay. So Kareem Hunt is past the age apex for running back. So is Ezekiel Elliott. So I view like Zeke a little bit higher. Palmer and Terrace. So you're essentially trading Palmer and Terrace Marshall for Rondell Moore. Yeah, give me the Rondell Moore side. I like Rondell Moore's profile better than Terrace Marshall's or Josh Palmer's. Yeah, that's how I would view it. So, yeah, and Hunt and Elliott are pretty close in the same like cliff. Okay, That's what I do that trade. Yo, I'm down 12. I have Rondell Moore. Do you think I'll win? Braden Wagner from YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you for tuning in. Do you think Rondell Moore's, if this is full PPR, I think you have a chance. In full PPR, I think you have a chance. In half PPR, it's going to be a little tougher. And in standard leagues, I'm not banking on it. Rondell Moore is a short dude, not a goal line or end zone type of player. So he would have to get there on like a broken play. So in PPR, I'd say probably 55% chance that it happens, more than likely. But if it's half PPR or standard, I would take the under. I'd probably say less than 50% chance based on the scoring. Okay, do you think Saquon just had a fluke game? Also, should I be worried about Eckler's usage? I think it is a fluke game for Saquon. He's a stud. He had 32 carries in the game against Houston. I'm not worried about that. And then should I be worried about Eckler's usage? Not the rushing. You should be happy with the rushing usage for Austin Eckler. Like, he's getting goal line work. We saw him get that work when he was, he got the rushing score. They pulled Isaiah Spiller off the field. When Isaiah Spiller had gotten carries on that drive earlier, they pulled him off and put in Eckler near the goal line when Eckler scored his rushing touchdown. So you have to be, happy with the rushing and the role that he has. But should we be worried about the passing usage? Yes, you should, because Keenan Allen is back. And I will say, there is going to be a cap ceiling for Austin Eckler's passing. That's my concern, is that Keenan Allen will draw 25% target share, and that Eckler is going to be limited to 12 to 15% target share, and he's not going to get into that 20% target share plus like we had seen in previous weeks. Unless we see Keenan Allen go back down with injury. So you should be worried about Eckler's passing game usage. I would be worried. And then Jeff Johnson from YouTube. I traded Geno and Schultz for Lamar. Was that a mistake? I have Kelce at tight end. I don't think it's a mistake, but I think you do have to lower expectations for Lamar moving forward. Lamar's been dealing with an illness. His number one wide receiver, Rashad Bateman, is on IR. We haven't seen Lamar Jackson finish as a quarterback one, or even outside of above the top 9 of quarterbacks since week 3. And Lamar Jackson is the quarterback 15 going into Monday Night Football. So yeah, you should be concerned. 11 of 31 on the ground. He did have a rushing score. He did not throw for a touchdown. He did have a pick in this game, 15.4 fantasy points. Kenny Pickett outscored Lamar Jackson. Marcus Mariota outscored Lamar Jackson. And, that's why you need to be paying attention to my rankings and my fantasy data articles, because I put Lamar Jackson as my lowest. I dropped Lamar Jackson much lower than all of the consensus. In fact, Jackson was my quarterback 8. The consensus was quarterback 5. And let me look at just the rankings, because I don't think that there were many other, rankers who had him there. Yeah, I had him at quarterback 8. There was only one ranker out of all the rankers who had Lamar Jackson lower than me this week. One out of over 200 rankers. So I would recommend paying attention to what I'm saying about these players. Jackson has not finished as a top 9 he's finished quarterback 9 or worse every week since week number 3. So yeah, you should be lowering expectations. He's not going to get into that elite quarterback 1, but I think that, getting a player who has at least access to that, I don't think Geno has regular access to it, just from the rushing and the type of offense that is there. Drug Squidward, I appreciate you jumping in, making this show happen. Thank you. And then there we go. Braden says my lineup's Dak, Taylor, Chubb, Hill, and Henry at the flex. Anything I need to change? I'm really happy with that. That looks like a pretty darn stinking good lineup there, Braden. You're going to be winning lots of money, or at least in a good position to do so. Is it time to drop Gus Edwards? J.K. Dobbins is coming back week 13. you're probably dropping Gus Edwards anyways, right? Right? You're picking up, who did I mention earlier? There was a running back. You're picking up Samaje Perine over Gus Edwards, okay? You're picking up Samaje Perine. You're not chasing the points. You're chasing the Joe Mixon might be out, and you're chasing the usage. That's the reason why you're chasing Samaje Perine. So give me Perine over Gus Edwards moving forward. And it's not necessarily having to do with J.K. Dobbins returning. Tight end is Combat. Yeah, you have to be happy with that, Braden. I have Deshaun. Would you recommend starting him right out of the gates, depending on how Lamar does this week? Well, looking at what Lamar's game log is moving forward, like Lamar in week 12 gets Jacksonville, and that should be a pretty good matchup for Lamar Jackson. Yeah. That should be a pretty good matchup for Lamar Jackson at Jacksonville. The rushing is going to be there for Lamar. And week 13, though, is the week where Deshaun gets his start against Houston, and then Lamar gets Denver. Here's the thing. I mentioned earlier in the live stream or podcast that you need to lower your expectations for wide receivers against the Houston Texans because they give up so many fantasy points on the ground, right? They give the most fantasy points to running backs. As a result, you need to be like just waiting and seeing with Deshaun Watson. Does he pass the eye test that week 1 against Houston? The Houston Texans don't give a lot of fantasy points to quarterbacks or to wide receivers because teams tend to run the ball really, really well against them and then salt the game away on the ground as well against Houston. So I would not recommend starting Deshaun Watson. I would still have Lamar over Deshaun Watson that week 1 back. So week 13, even though Lamar gets Denver. Is Samaje Perine worth a pickup? The answer is yes. I mean, we're going to get more news on how long Joe Mixon will be out with this concussion and this head injury, but Samaje Perine is clearly the running back you want in the Cincinnati backfield. It seems like Perine has improved his pass blocking from last year. Last year, Perine was one of the worst pass blockers in the NFL. Now he's pass blocking better than Chris Evans, which is why he stayed on as this number 2 running back and this pass blocking third down back on occasion, and now is just held on to that running back 2 role the whole season. So, yes, Samaje Perine is worth a pickup off of waivers, chasing the opportunity in week 12. All right, that's it. I appreciate y'all jumping in. This has been a lot of fun recapping week number 11. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate you, Jeff. Make sure you and everyone else who has tuned in, make sure you're hitting that red subscribe button on the YouTube channel. I appreciate all of you jumping in, recapping week 11. If you need a Monday Night Miracle, I'm rooting for you. I send you all of the Shamrock emojis. And until next time, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving week. Until next time, good luck with your Monday night matchups and good luck in the fantasy football streets.
Hey. Really the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain while I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best till into the next well. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next well. Guess I got next still.